So today we're going to be reading number 11 of the 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation report as part of Canadian Roots Exchange's campaign called 94 Days of Reconciliation.
So hashtag 94 Days of Reconciliation. Number 11 says, we call upon the federal government to provide adequate funding to the backlog of First Nation students seeking a post-secondary education. Now, what does that mean? We're just going to talk a little bit about that.
So, according to the National Household Survey, in 2011, only 9.8% of Indigenous people aged 25 to 64 in Canada held a university degree. That's compared to 25% of all of Canada within that same age range.
Those are some pretty stark numbers.
And have 50% higher earnings with a university degree. Indigenous graduates can earn 50% more than their peers with only a high school diploma.
So, while those are numbers and stats, Feather's going to tell us a little bit about what this looks like in real life.
On a personal basis.
On a personal level.
So what this looks like for me, for example, I get funded through my band of Little Pine First Nation, and they only can fund X amount of students to go to post-secondary school. And with that, if you apply and you get put on the waiting list, you could be on the waiting list from a couple months to many years down the road. With getting post-secondary funding, it's also required that you maintain a certain average. If you get below that average, they can take away your funding, and you're put back on the waiting list. If you don't apply for school right after you're done high school, you could potentially be put on the waiting list. If you go to university and take a break from university for a year or two, you can be put on the waiting list and not be able to return to school for a while. If you fail any of your classes, you are also required to pay back any tuition of the class that you failed specifically. So with only having, say, some bands may fund only 10 students per year, there could be 30 people that apply and only 10 get funded for those 4 years then. So with saying that, how many other students are there that have the potential to go to school and can't afford to without that post-secondary funding and help? That's one of the personal experiences I have. But this also applies to status First Nations people from bands that have post-secondary funding. So this doesn't go all across the board for all Indigenous people.
Yeah. Those who signed the treaties with the Crown thought about us. They thought about the generations ahead, even before we were born. And because of that, under the treaties, one of the agreements is that all First Nations have access to education. And, yeah.
So going back to that, the call of action we were doing is number 11. We call upon the federal government to provide adequate funding to end the backlog of First Nation students seeking a post-secondary education.
So yes, please share this video with hashtag reconciliation, hashtags.
Hashtag 94 days, hashtag CRE, hashtag TRC.
Thank you for watching Saskatoon's video on recommendation number 11.
One may ask why this is important. Because it's 2015.